Hello everyone, this is the final video on king and pawn endgames, at least for now, and I wanted to go over something that I briefly touched on in the previous videos. Here it's black to move. As you can see, there's an equal number of pawns on either side and on either wing, but is this a draw, or is white winning due to the active king? Well, after king f8 to activate the king, king e5, king e7. So here it looks as though black is stopping white's king from infiltrating to the 6th rank and grabbing the pawns. So perhaps if black sits tight, he can draw, or they can draw. Let's see, a4, f6 check, that repairs the hole on f6, king d5, king d7. So black does have the opposition here, in a way. If white's king moves, then black can gain more space. But the king doesn't have to move. I can just move pawns instead if I'm playing white. And what you can do is you can just gain a little bit of space, because the thing is, if black's pawns advance further than the 6th rank, so if they go to a5, g5, wherever, eventually white's king could just shuffle across and capture them, whereas white's pawns could go all the way to the 6th rank without being troubled by the black king. So, because black only has a few pawn moves, the idea is that he'll run out of pawn, or they'll run out of pawn moves first, forcing the black king to move, and then white could infiltrate. So let's see if that works. a5, and here, if black doesn't move a pawn, white can just keep the pawn on a5 and then start advancing on the king side in a similar manner. So what black did here, which might be a slight error, is a6. But it's probably not that big a deal, because after f4, white doesn't really have enough on the queen side to really sink his teeth into. The black king can protect the weakness on b6. You need to create more than one weak point. So the idea here is to try and force a black pawn to the 5th rank. King e7 is just about safe, because king c5, king back to d7, and king b6, king c8, and black will just be safe. So g4, king d7. And now there is a pawn on the king side that is not being protected, f6. So let's make that pawn move, g5. And here, if black moves the pawn to f5, next move there'll be no pawn moves to play. So what white could do is use the pawn on b2 and h3 to just gain a couple of tempos or moves. Make passing moves with b3, h4, b4, and the black king is going to have to give ground eventually. So just to briefly show, f5, h4, and if king c7, then white can move to e6, and who can work out how many moves it will take either side to queen their pawns and promote? After king c7, king e6. Alright, well, I count 11 moves for black. King c6, b5, a5, b4, b3, b2, a5, a4, a3, a2, a1 queen. So 11 moves for black, who is moving first here. And for white, it will take, if it takes under 10 moves, white will promote first, easily. So king f7, king g7, king takes h7, king takes g6, h5, h6, h7, h8. It will take 8 moves, so white will easily promote first. And if king e7, then white can play king e5, grabbing the opposition. And if king d7, king f6, similar to the position below, before, and if king f7, king d6, and after, say, king e8, king c7, I think it's obvious that white will promote first. So f5 isn't really an option. Instead, f takes g5 was played. F takes g5. And now what's happened is that white has used 2 pawns on a5 and g5 to restrain 4 black pawns. And black is now out of moves, and white still has at least 3 spare pawn moves, h4, b3, b4, to gain the opposition and to force infiltration. So black's best chance is king e7, I think. King e5, king e8, king e6, just keep the opposition. King f8, king d7, king f7. And here what you could do just to shore up the position is to play b4 as a spare move. And the reason not to play b3 is that you only really need 1 extra move just to force the black king away from e6 and f6. And then use the king to take the 2 pawns on b7 and a6. So if king g7, then white will take 7 moves to promote, and black would then take I think 11. Oh no, 10. 10. It will take 10 moves, so white will win quite easily in the promotion race. So black plays h6. White takes. Why not? g5. Okay, this is more interesting. So black's trying to carve a path through to promote his last pawn on the king side. But again, how many moves after king c7, king g6? How many moves will it take white to promote? How many moves will it take black? I think it's 6 moves for white, 6 moves for black. Sorry, 8 moves for black, and 6 for white. So let's see: 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6. So white's promoted, and again, you can win this by getting the queen to check the black king enough to there's a method of forcing the king in front of the pawn and then rolling your king up and shuffling it across to aid in the attack. But the simple way is just to eliminate the pawn and use the final one to promote to a queen. There we go, nice and simple. No risk, no calculation really required. But going back to the beginning, so the sort of thing I want you to take away from this game is white's only advantage was king activity here. White's king is in black's half of the board. It's on the 5th rank. And this is why I say that if everything else is equal, if you can get your king into the opponent's half when there's only king and pawns on the board, then you'll almost always win, or at least you shouldn't lose. So the reason for that, again, is that you're clamping down on a lot of squares. You're usually forcing the enemy king to be a passive defender that is struggling to prevent your king invading even more. And also it limits their mobility for their pawns, while your pawns are very mobile indeed, and you can even just use them to win tempo. So again, the king is doing all it can on d5, so you just throw up pawns and force black into being completely immobile. And there's nothing black can do here. So in this position, as I've just gone over, I won't linger on it too long, the black king is forced to move. So what's he going to do? King c7 loses, king e7, king here, and even if black had played king d7, king f6 would just have won faster, and king f7 would have lost to king d6, because then, similar to the game, the king can just run across to the vacated queen side and take the pawns. So hopefully you can now win all the king and pawn endgames that you go into. It does happen semi-regularly, at least for me. And comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.